I think the simplest definition that I would give for gratitude is simply choosing to focus on the good, or to make it more specific, you could say the good in my life.
Hi, I'm Chris LeBrun, your host of the Wholistic Productivity Podcast. As someone who's never been afraid of dreaming big and going for it all, I often find myself with a lot on my plate. I'm a husband and father, a nonprofit fundraiser, and an entrepreneur. What I've realized is my view of productivity was pretty toxic. After decades of believing that in order to do more, you had to work harder, I began to see productivity as this beautiful thing. Holistic productivity is the idea that you can accomplish your professional, personal, and purpose-driven goals in a healthy way, and doing so will make you happier and more fulfilled. Join me each week as we break down myths about productivity, share practical tips for maximizing your time, energy, and focus, and hear from others about their productivity journey. This is the Holistic Productivity Podcast. Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for being here for this episode of the Holistic Productivity Podcast. My name is Chris LeBrun. I'm your host. I'm a productivity coach, and I am just so grateful that you are here. And I did say that word intentionally. We have a great episode for you today, and I am just excited that you are here, that you are investing time and energy and focus into yourself and your goals by listening to this podcast. That's what it's all about. I say it all the time. My goal is to help you dream big, plan smart, and live fully. And we're going to talk a lot today about that last part, live fully. You know, November is one of my favorite months for one simple reason: Thanksgiving. I love it. Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday, and November is National Gratitude Month. And I always try to make a big deal about National Gratitude Month because I believe that gratitude is such an important part of our lives, and it's also an important part of our productivity. So to celebrate this year on the podcast, I have a special series on gratitude planned for this entire month. And what better way to kick off a month-long series on gratitude than with the guy who actually wrote the book on gratitude? My guest today is Dr. Will Johns. He is an executive pastor and author of the book, Everything is Better Than You Think: How Gratitude Can Transform Your Life. Now, this book is a practical application of his years of research for his doctoral dissertation, which was also on gratitude. Now, in his book, Dr. Johns lays out the reasons that our human brains default to negative thoughts, how gratitude can be a useful tool for seeing the positive in every situation. It's a book that will challenge your thinking and encourage you to take a different look at your life each day through the lens of gratitude. Now, on a personal level, Will is a good friend. He was our pastor for quite a while, and my wife and I were in a small group Bible study with him and his wife and some other couples. My wife has taught all three of his kids, and I had his oldest two kids in my youth group, and they were in the same class as my boys in elementary and middle school. So we have had a lot of good times together and a lot of fun. Will and his family love the outdoors, especially snow skiing. And I'm not going to lie, I'm maybe just a little bit jealous when they go up to Vermont, back to my area of the country to go skiing. But Will, it is just such a pleasure to have you on the show today. And I am grateful to have you kick off our month-long series on gratitude. See what I did there?
I see it. Thank you, Chris, for inviting me on the show. It's a delight to be here, and I'm grateful that you asked me.
Well, look, I've got so many questions and there's so much to talk about. But first, let me ask you this. You wrote your dissertation on gratitude. So what prompted that decision? Why were you drawn to the topic, and why did you want to spend so much time, effort, and energy researching this topic that we just kind of take for granted?
Yeah, it's really interesting how that all came to be, Chris, because I had a major professor that I had to get to approve my dissertation. And I knew I wanted something in the huge realm of spiritual growth or personal growth.
Mm.
And I knew I had to narrow it down to something very specific. And my professor nudged me towards a book on gratitude.
Mm.
And after I read it, I started getting more interested. And I finally decided this would probably be a great topic for me to dive into. And it's interesting. I think he pointed me in that direction somewhat because I think he believed I was not a very grateful person. So,
He's, I'm going to teach you.
yeah. So I think he was like trying to help me out. And truthfully, I had always thought of gratitude as just kind of like so what, like that's, of course, yeah, we
Yeah.
should do it. But I didn't practice it hardly at all as a practice
Mm.
until I did my research.
Yeah. So, I mean, that sounds like there was a big shift in your perspective. Was there anything specific that changed or shifted, or was it just sort of going from not practicing gratitude to practicing gratitude, or was there something else that you kind of learned along the way just in your own life?
Like, I think what happened for me is I kind of saw gratitude as like this tiny piece of like a whole bunch of other things that I needed to focus on and do. And so it was just always for me, like off to the side. And
Mm.
and by doing this research and spending 3 years just kind of immersed in the topic, I began to realize that it was a foundational principle for life. And
Mm.
and probably the best way to illustrate that is it began to click for me that this shows up just with massive stark contrast when you meet people who are like in their 80s and 90s.
Mm.
So and we've all met people in their 80s and 90s. You'll meet some on this side who are just full of bitterness. They'll immediately start talking about the people that did them wrong and
Mm.
everything that went wrong in their life, and how nothing's fair and the country's falling apart and their kids never visit anymore, and just a ball of bitterness, right? and you kind of want to get
Yeah.
away from them as quickly as possible. And then I would meet these individuals that they were in their 80s and 90s, and it was like this joy was just pouring out of them, like a bright light
Mm.
shining out of their face. And I think I
Yeah.
told this story in the book, but I can't remember. But there was a woman like this that I met who was friends with my grandmother. And I was visiting like my 90-year-old grandmother in her assisted living. And this woman bounds up with a big smile on her face. My grandmother introduces me, and she's like, "Oh, it's so wonderful to meet you, young man. And I love your grandmother." And, she's going into all of this. And I'm thinking, oh, it's wonderful that my grandmother found this younger lady to hang out with that has so much energy. And in my mind, she was in her early 70s. This woman was 103 years old. and,
Oh, wow.
and just pouring out energy, so happy, only had positives to say. And I remember
Yeah.
telling myself, like, I hope I'm at least a little bit like her when I don't think I'll get it to 103. When I'm 80, I hope I'm a little bit like
Yeah.
her when I'm 80.
And we do see that a lot, and I think I've even started making the jokes, like being a grouchy old man and, telling people to get off my lawn, because we sort of see sometimes the older generation, as you get older, can fall into that sort of mindset. But
Mhm.
obviously, you're seeing something very different. Was gratitude a huge part of that, do you think? Were you able to ask your grandmother about that?
Yeah, I mean, it was very clear, just in the time that I spent with her friend, that everything was positive, that she was focused
Yeah.
on. And that really was the key thing that hit home to me. And going into it, I was actually scared about what I might find in one regard, and that is I was really hoping I didn't find it to be true to the research that true gratitude was to kind of like put a fake smile on our face and pretend everything's fine. The idea of that was so repulsive to me. I was like, oh, I hope I don't find that out. Thankfully, I didn't, because what I found is that gratitude can be integrated with pain and loss and grief even, because it's not a denial of the negative. So that I want to be very clear about that. It's not, sometimes we feel like, people use the phrase like toxic positivity, someone that's just, like, oh, my close friend just died. Oh, it's wonderful. It's like, it just, it makes you cringe, So that's not it. Gratitude is acknowledging the pain in our lives, acknowledging the good in our lives, and then making an intentional choice. I'm going to focus over here on the good. My life will be defined by this, not the pain. And so what I talk about is the good. Now if I need support and I need help with something painful, yes, I talk about that too. Sure. And I'm willing, I deal with my negative emotions, but I don't have to live there 24/7. And that's what I believe is the difference.
Is that sort of where the title of the book comes? Everything is better than we think. Can you unpack that idea a little bit more? What do you mean when you say that?
Yeah, that's really where the title of the book comes from, is that our brain naturally defaults to focusing on the negative. And part of it is like a protective mechanism. And part of it is based on assumptions. So for instance, if I see a rustling in the grass and I make the assumption it's just the wind, it's a beautiful, cool breeze that I can enjoy, and I'm wrong, it's actually a tiger that's about to attack me, I'll be quickly eliminated from the gene pool. So the brain defaults to like, all right, I've got to assume the negative first for like a safety mechanism. Also, the brain loves to solve problems. So our brains are always scanning for problems so that it can work on them and try to fix it. And so when I started to understand that, I realized because we gravitate towards the negative, because our brain defaults to problems, everything is better than what we're thinking about. Because we're only thinking about half of our reality, the negative half. And so gratitude kind of forces the brain over here to start seeing like, oh, yeah, there's these problems, but man, there's all this good too in my life. And as soon as we look at it, we feel different inside. And that's the thing that I think appealed to me the most about gratitude, and probably what inspired me to take all that research and put it in just a easily accessible book, is like, man, we can feel so much better without really anything changing in our life at all, except the focus.
Yeah. Let's pause here for a quick break. We'll be right back. If you've ever gone down the rabbit hole of trying every to-do list or project management app, you know how exhausting it can be. You download the app, you set it up, enter all your data, and then scramble to cancel it before the trial ends. Trust me, I've been there and it's no fun. That's why I love Efficient.app. Alex and Andra, a husband and wife team, have spent over a decade testing and reviewing software of all types so you don't have to. Calendars, project management, banking, planners, email marketing, you name it, they've covered it with honest reviews and side-by-side comparisons. And they don't sugarcoat it. If a tool isn't worth your time, they tell you straight up. I've personally found their reviews super helpful when I was trying to sort through different project management apps. It saved me a ton of time and frustration. Best of all, they often have special deals on the tools they recommend so that you can save money. I'm especially grateful to Efficient.app because they've been supporting the Holistic Productivity Podcast since the very beginning. The best way to check them out and support the podcast is through the link in the show notes. So next time you're looking for software, let Efficient.app do the work for you. Trust me, you will not regret it. Yeah, and that's a good point. It's what we focus on. You use the analogy in the book of gratitude as a lens, a magic lens. Talk more about that. How does this magic lens help us see things differently?
Yeah, like I was trying to use the analogy, like if you put on a pair of glasses that are yellow tinted, everything looks a little more yellow. And it colors what you see. Another way that I would describe it is I wear contact lenses. When I don't have those in, the whole world looks like a Monet painting, very blurry, very abstract.
Mm-hmm.
When I've got those lenses in, it clarifies everything. And I think what happens is it's like the lenses are almost like night vision goggles in a sense where our natural view is kind of in darkness. And through gratitude, the lenses kind of shine some light on our reality. And I argue in the book that gratitude actually helps us see reality more clearly because it helps us see both the good and the bad, and not just the bad. Now, here's a powerful way for someone to put this into practice, and I've done this with myself, and it's helped me tremendously. Whenever you're evaluating yourself, what we tend to do is just immediately go to, I'm not good at this. We instantly go to, what we know we're not good at, what we struggle with, what our weaknesses are. We don't automatically go to all of our strengths over here. And so it's really helpful as we're doing a self-evaluation. If we want to see ourselves more clearly and accurately, we have to face our flaws, and sometimes it's easy to shove those away. But what we really need is to acknowledge our strengths and recognize that that's part of the whole picture. And when I started doing that, what I found is that it gave me a lot more confidence so that I could address my weaknesses without losing so much confidence that I suddenly was bad at life. It's like, like if you're thinking in terms of sports and you're a coach, you don't want to correct a player so much they lose all their confidence and now they can't even shoot the ball anymore, or they just believe that they're terrible at it.
Yeah. So here's a question that it's kind of taking a step back a little bit, but I always hear people talk about, I think you even mentioned it tonight, this idea of practicing gratitude. Why do we call it practicing gratitude? I know we say that about medicine or law, but is there a reason, or is that just how everybody talks? Why do we talk about practicing gratitude?
Yeah, that's a great question. The way I would look at that is, number one, gratitude doesn't come naturally. So the only way you're going to really benefit from it is through intentional practice. There are moments, I should take that back. There are moments when it does come naturally, but they're few and far between. And that's because of the law of habituation. So this is something that came out of my research. So if you think of today, for instance, whatever you experienced today, there were a lot of things you expected to experience. And if what you expected kind of came to be, you'll just feel normal. You won't feel grateful and you won't really feel upset. You'll just feel like kind of in between. Yeah. If somehow something majorly good happened, like let's say you went out in your mailbox and there was an unexpected check for $1,000 sitting there, that would bump you above your baseline. because that doesn't
Yeah.
happen every day. And you'd be like, man, this is a great day.
Yeah.
I'm loving it. Um, or, you're at work and somebody pours all kinds of compliments on you that you weren't expecting and it's super nice, it's like, wow, like this is a great day. So what happens is whatever the baseline is, that becomes normal, and we don't really naturally experience gratitude unless something goes above it. And we get upset if anything's below it.
Hmm.
The problem is most of us that live in wealthy Western countries, our baseline's like really high. And as a result, very few things are going to get above it. And so the intentional practice, one kind of mind trick, I guess, that you can do is to lower your baseline all the way down to 0, and then intentionally be grateful for everything that's above 0. So one of the ways, I mean, this is kind of a weird mind experiment, but let's just imagine yesterday you showed up to this country with nothing but the clothes on your back. And then today you suddenly had everything that you have. Your wife, your kids, your house, your cars, your job. You'd probably be pretty stoked about getting all of that if you had nothing before.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you're not going to be very excited about it if you don't intentionally recognize that you have all of that.
Yeah.
You just expect, and this is why often wealth and privilege leads to entitlement. And entitlement is one of the major barriers of gratitude. I go into that in the book, but you get your baseline way up here and then you feel entitled to everything that's below it. Like that should just be there. So it's a challenge because of that.
Yeah. When the kids were little or younger, we would kind of joke around that our family motto was keep expectations low. Because, when you go on a trip or you're out somewhere, hey, things can go wrong. But if you keep your expectations low, you're always going to have a good time. And I think that's a little bit what you're saying there. I think there's limitations to that mindset and that theory, but that's sort of become our joke family motto, is like, hey, just keep expectations low. You'll always be happy. But
well, you have to kind of recognize like how that messes with your mind. And let me just throw this in super quick. Sorry, Chris, I'm interrupting you.
No.
I think this is a powerful thing when it comes to marriage, because in marriage, we have all of this in our spouse. And what happens is we just get upset with them if they dip below it ever. If we can pull that back and say, wait a second, what if I didn't have them in my life? What if I have nobody? And then they bring all of this, and I can be consistently grateful for who they are and what they bring into my life on a daily basis. You can see how that changes the lens of how I'm going to relate. And the research shows that the practice of gratitude is a huge benefit to marriages and really all relationships.
So let me ask you this. Is it fair to say that gratitude is a lifelong journey? And what I mean by that is, it's fine if I'm grateful today, if I have gratitude today and I'm practicing it, but I need to have that tomorrow as well, right? And I kind of have to have that when I'm 80 and when I'm 103. Is that a fair thing to say, that it's not enough just to be grateful today, but it's really that lifelong journey?
Yeah, absolutely. It is a lifelong journey. It's not a do it once today and you're good for the rest of your life. One way you could think about it is kind of like charging your cell phone every day. Like, you can't just charge it once and it's good for the rest of your life. Gratitude is something that you benefit from and you strengthen the muscles, so to speak, through putting it into practice. And in fact, practice is even more valuable than understanding. So I like to think of it like exercise, where if I just exercise, I don't have to know how it works to benefit from exercise. I just get out and run, lift a few weights, yes, knowledge always helps, but there are people that know way less about gratitude than I do, but are way farther along in the journey, much more grateful than I am. And I think it's also crucial for us to have a vision of how we want gratitude to play out for us. And I think for me, that vision is the vision of becoming a grateful person. So becoming somebody where gratitude is always running in the background of my mind, that in every situation, in every decision, in every challenge, I can kind of see the good that's there. I can draw strength from that. I can apply that into, what I'm working towards. And so I think it starts with maybe just basic practices, maybe a gratitude journal, maybe just a prayer of gratitude in the morning and at night. Maybe every time you're on your commute, you could say, on my morning commute, I'm going to think about everything I was grateful for the previous day. So I start on a positive note. There's a lot of ways to get the practice going and then to keep it going.
And that actually is a perfect segue into my next question. Can you unpack some of those ideas a little bit more? What are some simple ways that one can start practicing gratitude today that is not going to be complicated, but will have a meaningful difference in their life? And I know you mentioned some of those, but unpack those a little bit more.
Sure. So they say the most effective is a gratitude journal. They also say that's the one that takes the most discipline and most people will not stick with it, which I have found to be true. I've done some gratitude journaling. I have not stayed with it. So I don't necessarily highly recommend it unless you're very, very disciplined. What I recommend is anything that you can integrate into current habits. So, if you already have a commute to work, say you've got a 20-minute commute, perfect time to practice some gratitude. Maybe start off with some music that really lifts your spirits in some way. Then kind of rehearse, what am I grateful for? What's going good in my life? What are my strengths? What are the things that I can feel good about? The research shows that when we're in a positive state of mind, it broadens and builds our capacity for resilience and for creative decision making. So we tend to make better decisions when we're in a positive frame of mind. So that's another, I'll throw it in here. It's another practice is I'm very disciplined about not making major decisions when I'm in the valley, when I'm down and out. I try to make every big decision when I'm feeling good because I'm going to think much more clearly. I'm going to see all the options. I'm going to feel more confident. So like that's another way to apply this. One of the ways that I really like to do gratitude is I already have the habit of most days I'm going for a short walk in nature. I'm blessed to live a couple 100 yards away from a path through some woods at the dead end of the road that I live off of. And so I'll just go into the woods, and that's a perfect time for me to practice gratitude. So combining it with other things. Some people have the habit of saying a prayer first thing in the morning, praying throughout the day. You can integrate gratitude into whatever prayer time or whatever spiritual practice that you currently have. You can start a gratitude text group. So maybe maybe with your family, maybe with a couple friends, say, "Hey guys, I'm trying to be more grateful. Let's set up a chat, and we only put what we're grateful for in the chat." Or we're all challenged to put one thing per day, something that I'm grateful for today. So there's really no end to the practices. I encourage our listeners, whatever works for you, like just do it. Don't try to do it perfectly. Just try to do it. And whatever works for you is good.
So does it have to be something that is deep, or can we be a little bit more surface level? Is there anything in the research that shows that one is better than the other? Because I could say every day, well, I'm thankful for my wife, I'm thankful for my kids, I'm thankful for that's just scratching the surface, right? It's not necessarily getting in and digging deep. So does that matter at all when I'm trying to come up with things to be grateful for?
You don't have to be, you don't have to do the deepest. So I think I want to clarify that, the simplest possible list is going to be effective. So, it could be, I'm grateful for this bowl of cereal that I'm eating right now. I really like this orange juice. I'm glad I have a refrigerator, to keep my food. So it can be anything, anything, really.
Yeah.
It can be the smallest thing. So yeah, it doesn't have to be some earth-shattering, profound thing to be effective.
Let's pause here for a quick break. We'll be right back. Living with pain is no fun at all. Whether it's sore muscles from a workout, nagging joints, or even stress that just won't leave you alone. That's why I love Little Golden Shepherd. They make all natural butters from organic herbs and essential oils, formulated to ease pain, reduce stress, and even soothe sensitive skin. I use the muscle butter after tough workouts, and the joint butter is perfect for my knees, which somehow were bad even when I was a kid. I'm so grateful to have Little Golden Shepherd sponsoring the Holistic Productivity Podcast. The way they support the show is super simple. Every time you shop through the link in the show notes, a portion of your order helps keep this podcast going. And here's the best part. If you use the promo code WHOLEPROD, you'll save 15% on your first order. That's promo code WHOLEPROD, WHOLPROD. Try Little Golden Shepherd today. You're going to love it as much as I do, and your muscles will too. You talked about the impact that gratitude has on our creativity. What are some of the other benefits that we have when we're grateful?
So one of the ones that I love the most, because it creates what I call like a virtuous cycle of gratitude and positivity, is gratitude helps us make better decisions. And so when we practice it in the present, we make better decisions in the present. That leads us to a better future, which gives us more to be grateful for, which helps us make better decisions, better future, and the cycle continues. Now, as a word of warning, it goes the other way. If we get in a negative cycle, we can, really take ourselves down quickly. So it really helps us make better decisions. When we do that, we have more to be grateful for in the future. And that cycle of positivity, that momentum, really carries us. And I think that's a huge part of productivity, is getting into that virtuous cycle, getting some positive momentum and rhythm in life. Here's one I want to make sure I don't miss is it's like the opposite of anxiety. So anxiety looks to the future and imagines a worst case scenario. If we can be intentional, we can look to the future and imagine something good happening. I mean, imagine that. Like, what if the future is not, dystopian and everything falling apart? What if I can look to the future and my life is better a year from now than it is right now? And that's the power of becoming. As I become a more grateful person, even if my external world is technically worse a year from now, I might be happier a year from now because of how I'm perceiving it, how I'm reacting to it, how I've learned to deal with what comes. And so that's probably one of my favorite benefits of gratitude.
And that goes back to what we talked about at the beginning, where it's a matter of focus. You're choosing to focus
Hmm.
on the positive. Um, and I love that suggestion. I've heard people talk about that before, rather than thinking about, well, what if I fail? What if I succeed?
Yeah,
And,
yeah,
and
yeah,
start thinking about that, and going through that mind experiment of, well, I could start this business, but I could fail, or I could succeed and I could have stronger financial security and a better retirement, and I could send my kids to better universities. And when you start looking at all those things, it kind of like, well, why wouldn't I do that?
yeah,
Why wouldn't I
yeah.
take that chance because of all these things that could happen? So yeah, I love that. That's powerful. What are some of the obstacles that we face in terms of living a grateful life?
Yeah, I mentioned a big one earlier, which is entitlement and that,
Mm,
law of habituation. We certainly face the fact that our brain defaults to the negative, so that's going to come very naturally to us, and so that's a major obstacle that we're going to face. Um, Also, there's an interesting one that you wouldn't expect, that came out in the research, and that is the vulnerability of joy. And so when we
mm,
feel joy, there's this vulnerable feeling of, what if I lose it? And
mm,
so the brain is kind of like playing it safe kind of mechanism, um, starts preparing to lose it.
mm,
And as I was teaching a gratitude class once, and I was explaining this concept, and one of the members of the class, he said, "You just explained what happened to me on my wedding day." And I'm like, "What?" He was like, he's like, "Yeah, I was having the best day of my life. I'm looking at my wife who I'm getting married to, and I love her with all my heart. And then I have this horrible thought go through my head of, what if I lose her?" And I was like, "Whoa, like that's horrible." And that is this kind of like, our brain thinks about a worst case scenario to kind of like prepare us in advance. And it's horrible what it does to us. And so joy can feel very
yeah,
vulnerable because, man, suddenly I'm like really happy and I got a lot to lose. And so with that one, I would simply say, like, we have to kind of get comfortable with the discomfort of joy. That the
yeah,
joy there will be a little edge to it. Like, it's not, it doesn't feel like perfect security. It feels like, man, I'm doing great, but whew, you know, I'm doing great, and that
yeah,
means something could happen to me. So
yeah. That's
I, I
fascinating.
I fight that one with myself quite a bit.
It's fascinating that brain is just trying to sabotage us. It sounds like.
Yeah, for good purpose. The brain is always thinks it's
Yeah,
helping us, but
yeah,
we have to
right.
learn, when we understand how it works, then we can kind of be ready for some of these things to happen to us.
Yeah. I'm sure that social media has an impact on our gratitude. Did that come up at all in the research, or talk a little bit about that?
Well, one of the things certainly doesn't help gratitude, in terms of social media, is comparing ourselves to others. Um, and
Yeah.
what often happens in a comparison is it's not a fair comparison ever. So I'm comparing how I feel at the moment on the inside with how somebody's social media makes them look on the outside.
Mm.
But we all know that sometimes that perfect photo that we post on social media, um, there was a lot of negative energy that happened to produce that photo. No, there. What are you doing? It's like all this arguing, and why do we have time for this right now? And then
Yeah.
okay, we got it. Now I'm gonna, so there's so much that's just not real on social media, and it
Yeah.
tricks our brain. And so the solution is this: scrolling social media for long periods of time. Probably I would add as a fourth major barrier. This is not the book. It's not, I didn't come up with this in my research. But it just fills your brain with dissatisfaction. Because it's scrolling what you don't have. And so gratitude is an intentional choice to focus on what you do have. In fact, I think the simplest definition that I would give for gratitude is simply choosing to focus on the good, or to make it more specific, you could say the good in my life. And so I think in those terms, if you could feel good for your friends and say, man, they're having a fun trip, that I feel I'm happy for them, fine.
Yeah.
But if you feel lousy by the time you finish scrolling social media, that's your cue that it didn't work. And it's not. When you practice gratitude, you're going to feel good. Like you will feel good on the inside. So, I mean, it's right there. It's instant feedback as to whether you're doing it or not.
Yeah, and I would say that scrolling through social media for long periods of time is not going to help you be productive either. So there's
Right.
double reasons why not to do it.
Yes.
No, yeah, and I find that comparison is just, it doesn't do anything good for us, and I can look at other business owners, other coaches, other podcasters. I've been doing this is episode, I think, number 34, right? And I can look at somebody who's been doing it for 134 episodes, and I can say, man, look at their following, look at their studio, their setup, or whatever it is. Well, they've had a lot more time to dial that in and to learn from their mistakes. And I'm still learning from mine. But when we don't take that into consideration, I love what you said about comparing what we feel on the inside versus what they're showing on the outside. We don't take pictures to put on social media of when we're just sitting in our living room in our exercise shorts and our socks, where we show the pictures where we're out skiing or vacationing or having a grand time. And I think that does create that dissonance.
The only possible way, and this is, no one's going to do this, but the only possible way to get an accurate comparison of my life to what I'm seeing on social media is if somebody live streamed their life 24/7 and I saw every single second of it. Then I would have an accurate comparison. What we see on social media is less than 1% of that person's actual life. So, and let me give you another example of this, because I think, people are going to push back on me on this one. But here's another example. When my wife and I were a young couple, we knew this other couple, and my wife looked at me and she looked at them. She's like, man, they are so happy. They're just the perfect couple. They got everything going for them. And they were, I mean, they were very good looking. They were smiling all the time. They were energetic. And 3 months later, they were divorced. And so, we don't know. We don't know what's going on the inside. We look at the outside, and she looked at that and she was jealous, and she was, well, how come they have everything? We don't know. We don't know what's going or not going for somebody. We make assumptions, and we're usually wrong about those assumptions. And so gratitude is a way of just kind of bypassing all of that and saying
Yeah.
how my life is going is not dependent on whether, like, I shouldn't feel any better if someone's life is difficult. That shouldn't make me feel good.
Yeah.
So why am I upset if their life is good? You know,
Yeah.
I should set it all aside and just say, what about my life? What am I doing for myself? You know?
No, I think that's fantastic, and it's so important for us to remember as social media is just becoming more and more a part of the everyday life. And so I'm glad that you were able to talk about that. We talked about this just a little bit, and this is kind of where I want to wrap up, because I think it's an important point to just bring home and to dig in a little bit deeper on. There is the idea that if I am looking for the good in everything, like you said, that toxic positivity, how can I be grateful when I lose a parent, or when I lose a spouse or a child, or I get into a car accident, or some of these truly horrific things happen? So I don't want us to just gloss over that, because I really do think that there was a lot of value that you talked about. How can we balance that need to look for the positive even when there is horrible things going on?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was the most important question that I had when I entered the research. I really, really wanted to know the answer to the question you just asked. And in my book, I devoted a whole chapter to gratitude and pain, because that was, I felt like until that gets integrated in some effective way, it could almost be dangerous to practice gratitude, because we end up kind of disconnected from reality, insensitive to the pain of others. And so
Yeah.
what I came up with that is that gratitude is actually a practice that can provide enormous resilience for somebody going through difficult times. In the project that I did for my dissertation, I found that individuals who were going through some pain at the time that they were taking my gratitude class actually increased their level of gratitude and their level of life satisfaction during that same time period as they were going through a difficult challenge, because gratitude helps you get through it. So for instance, the loss of a loved one. Gratitude does not attempt to label that as a positive thing. Gratitude looks at that as, that's sad, that hurts, that needs to be grieved. I need to go through all the stages of grief. I can't just shove it away. I can't live in perpetual denial. All of that has to be faced head on. But here's where gratitude comes in. I can recognize that the pain of loss that I feel is in direct proportion to how grateful I was for that person. If someone dies that I've never met in my life, it doesn't affect me emotionally, especially if I don't hear about it. But when I lose someone that I was connected to emotionally, then I can still practice gratitude and say, I'm grateful for all of the time and all of the ways in which this person connected with me, loved me, made me who I am today. And I'm grateful that I can still spend the rest of my life with these beautiful memories of those shared experiences that we had. And so I can, and this is going to sound weird, but I can experience profound sadness and be grateful at the same time. Those are not mutually exclusive experiences.
Yeah.
And so I feel like gratitude is a very key component to moving through the stages of grief. And ultimately, the final stages are acceptance and meaning. And I think gratitude helps us get there maybe a little more easily. So I see a very profound integration for this practice.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. Thank you for breaking that down, and thank you for being here talking about the book. We will put a link in the show notes to where people can pick up the book. It's a great read. I enjoyed it very much. But before we go, I end every show with what I call the questions, and these were inspired by James Lipton, host of Inside the Actors Studio, and it's based on the Proust questionnaire. So, are you ready for these, Will? We're going to just fire through these and see how you answer them. All
Let's
right.
do it. Let's do it.
Question number one: what motivates you?
Anger and joy. And I was thinking about the anger. I'm like, why? That just, just popped into my head. But I think it's just sometimes that's what gets me going. Like I can be kind of lazy on the sidelines. Sometimes anger wakes me up. But if I'm thinking about like writing this book, I think I would have to say it was joy, that I was just excited to be able to share this with other people. So depends, I guess, what it is. But those two things.
What discourages you?
Failure and feeling disconnected.
One word that describes you at your best.
Grateful.
One word that describes you at your worst.
Cynical.
Other than family or work, what gives you purpose?
My spirituality, faith, just the joy of feeling connected to something much, much bigger than myself. I feel that in community. I feel it in nature. So that gives me a ton of purpose.
What guilty pleasure brings you joy?
I love watching football with my brother and screaming at the television. It's such a great way to vent whatever my other frustrations have been throughout the day. I could take it out on that poor football team that is not doing what I think they should. Thankfully, they cannot hear me, so it feels fairly harmless. So.
How do you celebrate a win?
Oh, I mean, best way to celebrate is to be with people I care about and, celebrate with them. Also savoring it with gratitude. I forgot to mention this earlier, but if you savor something for 15 seconds, you're much more likely to remember it. If it's something good. If it's something bad, we don't have to do anything. We'll just automatically remember it. So, so if I get a win, I want to savor it so like I can come back to it later and remember the feeling.
How do you bounce back after a loss?
Talking to somebody else about it so the shame doesn't grow in the secrecy, getting it out on the table. Also taking some time alone in nature to just kind of process it spiritually, pray about it, and just kind of recalibrate, get grounded again, and go back and give it another shot.
Who was the last person you expressed gratitude towards?
I think we had a couple of close friends that were visiting from out of town this weekend, and they had to head back Sunday evening a couple of days ago. And so I expressed my gratitude to them for coming to visit and how much I enjoyed having them with us.
Nice. And if you could go back in time, what would you tell your 25-year-old self?
Whew. I think what I talked about earlier, my 25-year-old self desperately needed to know that the negativity and the fearful projections of the future were just that, just imagination, pure imagination. So I would tell my 25-year-old self, like, the future is way better than you think. Start imagining what good things might happen instead of fearing all the bad that might happen. I would love to go back and live those years with a different mindset.
Fantastic. Will, thank you so much for being here, for sharing with us. I loved this conversation. I love the book. And again, check out the show notes. Make sure you go and look for that. It's available on Audible. It's available in regular books. So either way you want to, I think it's on Kindle as well. So go check that out and make sure that you enjoy this book and get it. We'll also put some links for a podcast that you do with your brother. And hopefully it's not just screaming at the TV, but so we'll put that link there as well, and how you can connect with Dr. Johns. But thank you, Will. Appreciate you being here. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me, Chris. I loved it, and I feel blessed to have been a part of it. This recording. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Well, that is it for the show today. Thank you so much for being here. Glad that you were here, and hope that you have learned something about gratitude and something that you can take away and work into your life, integrate that into your daily activity. It's not something that you have to be perfect at. You have your whole life to practice that. So you can find the show notes at holisticproductivity.com/34. And again, all the ways that you can connect with Dr. Johns will be there as well. Make sure that you are subscribed on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube. Make sure that you hit like and subscribe, hit the bell so you'll be notified. We publish new episodes every Tuesday, but you want to get that as soon as they come out. So that's why you should subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. And if you like the show, you found it valuable, enjoyed what Will had to talk about, go ahead and rate the show as well. Just leave that rating so somebody else can see your thoughts, and that lets them know that it's a good show to listen to, and they can be blessed as well. You can also follow at Wholistic Productivity on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Threads, Substack, all of the social medias. We said that they're bad, but go check out mine. There's a lot of good productivity tips and motivation there. And I promise you won't have to try to compare yourself with anything that you find on that feed. It's just good information throughout the week, and that you'll want to be aware of. Also, want to mention the Holistic Productivity group on School. This community is fantastic. It's focused on helping each other be more productive in every area of life. There's a lot of great resources on there. We talk about gratitude on there. There's a whole channel on our discussion board around gratitude. And so we encourage people to express what they're grateful for, to share their wins. It's a growing community, and I love what is happening on School. We'll have a link for that in the show notes as well. So hope that you check that out, join the community, and continue the conversation there. Again, thank you so much for listening in. I mentioned at the beginning, but my goal with this podcast is to help you dream big, plan smart, and live fully. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time. Before I sign off, close your eyes for a minute, unless you're driving. But close your eyes and imagine this. It's Friday. You're excited for the weekend. TGIF, right? You're wrapping up the work week, getting ready to leave the office. But as you're walking out the door, you start to reflect on the week and you say, what did I even accomplish this week? It's a frustrating feeling and a horrible way to start your weekend. You know that you've worked hard all week, but you have little or nothing to show for it. If you've ever had these feelings at the end of your week, I have a special offer for you to help you on your productivity journey. I talk about it all the time. Being intentional with your time is one of the biggest parts of productivity. And one of the best ways you can be intentional is to plan your week. Planning your week provides clarity on your priorities. It eliminates confusion about what needs to be done, and it sets you on a path for success. Now, I've developed the perfect tool to help you plan your week. I call it my Sunday strategy, and I want to give you my Sunday strategy worksheet and guide absolutely free when you sign up for my weekly newsletter. The guide offers clear strategies for using the principles of holistic productivity to plan your week. You'll have a mindset shift away from the toxic aspects of productivity, and you'll get step-by-step directions for using the Sunday strategy worksheet. With my Sunday strategy, you only need 15 minutes each Sunday to plan out your entire week. It'll let you identify major projects and tasks that are coming up, assign those projects to specific days, and best of all, there are different sections for each area of your life: professional, personal, and purpose-driven, so you can reach all of your goals. My Sunday strategy worksheet also includes a weekly habit tracker to keep you focused on the habits that you want to develop. So if you want to avoid those Friday feelings of frustration and despair, you need my Sunday strategy worksheet. It's the perfect planning tool to help you build the winning strategy for your week. It's a resource you can come back to each day to keep you focused on reaching your goals, and it's an accountability tool to help you track your progress. Basically, it can help you have the most productive week ever. Like I said, it is completely free when you sign up for my weekly newsletter, which also features more strategies and tips to help you dream big, plan smart, and live fully. To get my Sunday strategy worksheet and guide, go to mysundaystrategy.com and sign up. That's mysundaystrategy.com. There will also be a link in the show notes, but again, mysundaystrategy.com. Look forward to having you back here for the next episode of the Wholistic Productivity Podcast.